Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Thank you for joining me. I'm super thrilled to be continuing the discussion on pulleys. Yesterday's video seemed to blow up. People were commenting awesome things. We had great discussions. I got a lot of nice compliments, so thank you all for watching and for supporting me. What I want to discuss in this video, and maybe this is premature, but what I want to say it as is an improvement to the winch system, and I don't mean that in a negative way or like this isn't a good system type of way, but I'm talking about expanding this current system into something that we can use and make into something super awesome for Stormworks. So what I've done is yesterday in the video, if you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it. I kind of went through these demonstrations here and I did make some suggestions, and then after the video I started to think, what other things can we do to make this sort of pulley system extraordinary? And I have a lot of experience working with pulleys, both in engineering university and in practice. I've done a lot of projects where we've actually built things for mines using winches and pulley systems. I'm talking about chutes and ship loaders and things like that, where you have to use a system of winches to perform an activity, or if you're just building the thing, you obviously have to bring up steel and create the building or structure that you're doing, so you use a system of pulleys and winches if you're not using a crane. Sometimes you can't use a crane if you are within a building, for example, so then you mount some steel on the roof and kind of drag it in with a winch and pulley system. So with that said, I'm going to bring you 10 ideas that can improve the winch system. And again, this is for the developers, but it's also just to get a discussion going, and it's not meant to shame or bash the current winch system, but just take it now and take it to that next level where it's going to be something extraordinary for Stormworks. The first item, you may have heard me talk in yesterday's video, but I would really love to see smaller sized pulleys. So currently we have these orange ones that you see in the back here. I would really love to see pulleys that are 2x2 rather than 3x3. And the reason for that is just applications in smaller creations, in tow trucks, in smaller cranes, inside buildings, things like that. I do think that having a smaller setup would be a really nice improvement to this current system. And every idea that I'm talking about here, we already have the physics, we already have the sort of basis. So now it's just kind of building upon this and kind of making this modular set of pulleys and things that we can use in the game. So with having smaller pulleys, there has to be some sort of downside. So these ones would be the large ones. And then these ones here, what I presume they would have to do is limit the length of the cable they could pull. So with these ones, you can have much higher cable or strength, honestly. And these ones, you'd limit it. So how you'd limit it, just like inside the game, if we have a single one of these here, and if we spawn a rope, you can actually see that with the rope, you can change the length. So we already have this in the game. This is one of the updates. And if you equip this rope and press R, you watch on the rope equipment thing, it says 1 meter, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, etc. So take a look at this. If I set 1 meter, it says move closer. If you set 2, you could attach it, but then you can't go any further than this. So what I presume would happen is you'd be able to attach a cable to this thing, but when you do so, it would not be able to function as the max length one. Like here, you could go 40 meters or whatever. Here, like you'd attach it and it would maybe have a max distance of extending like maybe like 3 meters or something quite small. Like what we have here, if I set this, if I set it to 2 meters, 2 meters might even be enough. Like that's all it could extend. It's literally meant for tiny systems. So on the back of a tow truck or whatever, you could do it. So that would be really nice. You could also, like I said, limit weight, have weight capacity, but that may be a little tougher. Like maybe if you exceed the weight capacity, this thing becomes damaged and you have to repair it with a torch. That could be an option as well, but I think the limit in length would be nice for these small ones. Now maybe you ask, what about a single piece of contact sort of controlling the winch, or a single point of contact? And I introduce to you the sheave piece. So a sheave, in essence, looks like this. And really what you have is a single roller that can redirect the angle of the cable or rope. So if we pretend that this blue sort of anchor is the sheave, you can have the cable go about it like this. And if this side gets pulled, it'll literally just pull it about that single piece. So what I propose the sheave would look like is pretty much like this winch that we already have, except instead of this black part here, this would just be a single roller. And what you do is you can attach a cable to it, and that cable will move about that point and act the same way as these guys do, but around a single point. Now we've already proven that we could use a single point of contact for ropes, so I propose that this would act the same way, and it would literally just sort of roll around that one point, the same way this big one works. So the sheave or sheave would be the smallest sort of cable system part, and it would be super useful for attaching things like this. And you could have an actual winch like over here, whatever, and it would go about this piece here and downward to whatever you need to connect. So it'll be like this and down like that, and it'll be a nice small piece, like perfect for davits, perfect for lifeboats, perfect for all kinds of smaller applications, ROVs and things. And it would be a very simple piece to add, and it would then be the smallest piece, so you'd have kind of a modular system of sized pieces that you could use. Probably my biggest sort of concern with this current pulley system is the fact that it's not supported for hoses and for cables. Now again, I mentioned this in the previous video, but this is a legitimate concern because the whole system's there, the physics are there, everything's implemented, and yet we still can't use the practicality of this pulley system for the hoses and for the cables. Now granted, sure, one could say the hoses are, if you bend them too much and kink them, they'll stop transmitting fluid through it. So that is a legitimate concern, but in the scope of this game, I don't think that it's a big concern, because anyways, if I lower this here, this cable is going to become all kinds of kinked. But for hose, but for cables, that really shouldn't be a matter at all. And really, you've added a whole massive part of the game, so this whole sort of pulley system, and then are limiting it to only ropes. So I think it would be really important to add support for the other types, for the hoses and for the electrical cables, because then not only will you allow that many more builds, and by you I mean the developers, not only will there be that many more builds available in Stormworks, but just the practicality and the realism of it. Because sure, you could use a cable reeler for an electrical cable. That's not just for metal sort of cables, steel cables and stuff. So that would be really nice. Now the debate, I guess, is whether they would make separate ones for electrical, separate ones for fluid, and separate for regular old ropes. Honestly, either or works. I'd be fine with a different visual, just like how we have the hose connector, and just like how we have the cable connector, for example, and then we have the old-fashioned rope node. So we currently have a variety of systems that are allowing the different things, but at the same time, keep in mind that the pulleys, or sorry, the winches that we have allow for all of them. So the winch doesn't care if it's a hose, doesn't care if it's a rope, doesn't care if it's an electrical cable. You can attach any of them to the winch. So I think personally the best system would be to make only one type of pulley that can support all the types of cables. And simply what you do is, if you've attached a rope, for example, and you try to go ahead and attach a cable, it just won't be able to join. Like, it just won't attach. So you have to disconnect, or not, you have to disconnect the rope and then attach the cables. If you want to have cables transmitted, if you want rope, you can only have rope. So I think I mentioned that yesterday, but really you'd have to make a system where you would just be able to connect the one type of rope, cable, whatever system, and then that is what's transmitted through this pulley. So that would add, I think, a massive part of the game, and I think this is the most important of all the suggestions, to put support for the other types of things. Because I want to have an ROV with a simple connector coming off the side. I want to have my life raft supported with an electrical cable as well, so it's charging up and then you just drop it. So there's a lot of nice things, and I think that having support for the other types of systems, hoses and cables, is a logical next step, having proved that this pulley system is useful, is good, and is popular in the game. The next thing that would be cool to see would be a cable splitter. So what if you want to lift something up that has 4 points of contact on either side, such as this crate, if it has 4 points of contact? Well, yeah, you could put 2 of these anchor connectors, and that bottom one can be attached to all 4, and the top one can be attached to all that. So it is a fairly simple thing to make, no problem with making this. But in theory, this could be one preset piece that is a cable splitter, and you could attach multiple cables to it and end up going directly up to the pulley. And I have here a bigger version of it. So on either side of this container, we're connecting to the splitter, and that gets lifted up by the winch. So yeah, this is a super easy thing to do, and you could do it by just building like a 4 or 5 block piece, but it maybe would add something to the game to have more of a defined cable splitter system where multiple cables can be used to sort of connect to one central point. So that's just an idea that could work. This one's not as important, so I'm going to go really fast, but that is something that I kind of thought that could be interesting to bring to the cable system here. I also mentioned this in yesterday's video, but I would love to have the ability to connect in one single anchor to multiple pulleys. So currently, this setup here, we've attached the 2 pulleys to these 2 anchors, whereas I can attach these to this single one to both of these anchors. So I think it would be quite logical to be able to attach one single anchor to both pulleys and have 1 point of contact attached to all of them. So that would be a logical sort of next step for this. Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like, you can just use what I had currently like this, but the end of the day, the compatibility's there, the system's there, and I don't know the programming behind it, but I don't think that it would break too many brain cells. Maybe I'm wrong, but just to have support for 1 point to multiple pulleys and you're off. You could lift it and have stability and all that good stuff. This item I've been thinking about for a while, and I did demonstrate it in the last video, but I would really want to have a hand cranked pulley or hand cranked winch, because really we've added this torque crank, which is manual. It lets us sort of do all kinds of things manually, lets us even charge batteries, for example, but we still don't have any system that is a fully manual mechanical system. So right now all I'm running here is an actual torque meter and a threshold gate and a small winch that's connected to electricity. So this isn't an actual manual hand crank, it just looks like it is. But really, if it was an actual manual hand crank, I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, this would just work because we'd be putting RPMs or RPS into the winch and raise this thing. So adding the manual aspect, as they did for the actual torque crank and the valves that you could open and close, having this would just add a little bit of mechanical play to the game and let you kind of do things like this for old-fashioned ships and stuff without kind of having to use an actual electric winch. This I covered in multiple videos, and I'll cover it again because I do think that it is nice and dandy and important, but pretty much I think that having the ability to manually reel in a rope, in and out, would be a very useful thing for this game. Think of a guy climbing up a electrical tower to sort of do some repairs. He can grasp onto this rope and yank himself up and kind of use these handles to more or less get himself up. Now you could sort of do this type of thing real fast and hope you don't fall off. You could hold individual keys, so Q and then E will be on the next one, and then I'll let go of this and kind of push on the next one, and then let go of this, pull up on the next one. So you could climb, I guess, up a series of these handles, but it would really be nice to be able to pull yourself up with a rope. So imagine you have a helicopter in front of you, above you, they've lowered down this rope, and you're in the water, you're like a victim and trying to climb up, and you'd be able to just hold this rope and in essence reel yourself in with your hands or reel yourself out. So the same would apply then to lifting a load such as this. So if we find a simple one like this, if we pick up this rope, I'd be able to literally pull with my guy's hands. So we're pulling and this goes up. Now this would only work if our guy is strong enough to lift this up and if this weight is less than the weight of our guy, because right now we're just using a simple pulley to redirect it, so we're not getting any mechanical advantage in this case. So if we did have enough pulleys, boom, 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 10 pulleys, then maybe, yeah, you could reduce not reduce the weight, but reduce the load being lifted from this block to the point that it decreases it less than the load or the weight of our character, then you could pull it up. But anyways, having a manual crank or a manual lift or a manual sort of hand pulling ability would be able to allow you to use manual systems. So just like this, where I'd be able to yank this up instead of just walking away from this thing or attaching it with a very low amount of cable. So see it, we yank it up a little bit, but we'd be able to just stand here and pull and this will go up, 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 up. So that's another manual system that I think would be awesome, which we don't have. So that would be a really nice ability to add some manual mechanics to this game. Rigid cables. So a lot of these ropes that we currently have in the game they do have this length, but they also kind of pull and extend and act a little bit like bungee cords. And really that may be a sort of glitch of the game or a bug or something that the developers just can't really seem to iron out, which is honestly fine. That's a-okay if it's something that's been on their mind, but they can't really do it. I know it's improved drastically since earlier versions of the game. Earlier versions of the game, the rope was even more bungee-like, but it'd be really nice to have a cable or a wire, like a steel cord that is fixed in length, and once it's fixed, there is no stretch in it, so you cannot sort of use it like a bungee, and it just ends up having a physical length which is preset, and that's it. There's no kind of jumping up and down. Now again, maybe it's a limitation of the game, the developing, the physics engine, who knows, and maybe that's not possible, but I think it would be nice, and it would just look like a steel cable, and it would be the best thing for lifting, but maybe it would be the most heavy or some other type of reduction. Maybe it's not as long. Like, sure, when we attach this one here to whatever, we can actually go out 40 meters. So I can run for 40 meters before the thing gets tight. So that's 40 meters. Now, I would presume that the steel cable could maybe only do 10 meters. So it's not intended for lifting like things from the depths of the sea, but rather intended for lifting things up off the ship deck or whatever, something like that. So anyways, that'd be an interesting thing. It wouldn't have flexibility. It would just be a fixed length once you've attached it, and boom, that you're just kind of not having this bungee-like effect. In reviewing all these types of pulleys, one thing that I thought about was the winches themselves. And honestly, while we do have 4 different types of winches, I think that it would be awesome to be able to set the speed of the winch inside the actual game rather than in the workshop. So previously, if we go here, Previously, I believe that someone was saying that you were able to change the speed of the winch, and actually this is now a glitch of the game. It must be, because now the rope anchor has speed, but the actual winches don't have speed. So for sure there's a glitch or a bug right now, because before the last update I was actually able to set speed on these winches, but only by pressing the select, and then you'd literally go here and set a speed for that winch, just like this. Now this is a bug, but imagine that we're selecting on the winch, you select the speed. But no, like, I think that it would be really cool to have an ability, or the ability, to attach this to the winch itself, and then, or this winch, and then you set the speed on this controller. Now this would be very nice, and apparently they actually had this in a previous version of the game and then removed it, so I'm not quite sure about that history, but that would be one of my suggestions for the winches, to have the ability to change speed kind of on the dime. And really that would work nicely with some microcontrollers. As you could see, if you're losing ground or whatever, you could speed up the winch, etc, etc. Now last one would be, or not last one, but the next winch change that I'd like to see is, in addition to having a manual winch, which this actually may cover both my problems, but in essence what it is they would add a winch that is powered by RPS. So what that looks like, or what that means, is we actually have a winch that, instead of the back here being a fluid connector, all we'd do is attach it like this. So actually this in essence would solve my problem mentioned earlier of having a hand cranked winch, because all we'd have is a winch that, instead of fluid, is RPS, and here you go, inputting RPS. Now you don't have to do a hand crank, you could also attach an engine to this, or you can attach an electric motor or whatever, and in that case the RPS going to the winch is what brings it up or down. Now the one thing they'd have to rework if they were to apply this to this is make it such that you could actually maybe interact with the winch itself and set it to be positive or negative or up or down. So in essence what I'm talking about is putting another block like this on that winch, that when you set this in a certain position it goes upwards, when you set it to another position it goes downwards, and then you go off and hand crank it. So that would be a simple fix for both sort of birds with one stone type thing, of how it having a hand cranked winch and having an RPS powered winch. Last but not least, I would really love to see VFDs. Now what is a VFD? It's a variable frequency drive. Now I actually use these in the design of some of my structures for my work, and a lot of my colleagues in the mechanical field use this for all of their types of electric motors and things. Now what a VFD does is allow you to change the frequency going to your motor. So in essence you attach the VFD to the battery, and we do have some interesting sort of electric type connectors, and I thought that we had VFDs, but we don't. We do have some sort of like charger and stuff, but in essence the VFD would look and function for all accounts just like this charger. Well, at least look like it, not function, but function I mean node wise. So you'd attach your battery to one of the nodes, and then you'd attach this to, say, the winch. Okay, so you'd end up with a system like this. This is to the battery, this one's to the winch, and of course we'd have one more node here, so the VFD could not be 2 by 1 block. It would have to be probably 3 by 1, let's say. But in theory, I'm just gonna put a thing like this. In theory, you'd have the VFD. So in essence, what you do is this would all be part of the VFD. Everything you see here is part of the VFD. So you got the two parts attached to the battery, attached to the winch, and then on this part here is where you'd actually get to input a number that you want to pass through your VFD. So then what you do is in your control panel or in your building or microcontroller or whatever, you'd have a lever, and that lever would be attached to the VFD, And depending on what you put here on this VFD, it would actually limit or allow more frequency to go through this power here, or this VFD, and it would then be transmitted to your winch. Now VFDs, you could use it with with anything with motors, so consider fans too. Like right now we have all these types of fans, like this fan here, small ducted fan. You can't set the speed. You set the speed by putting an RPS through it. So yeah, you could put more or less RPS that can, in essence, more or less power going through the through this node, through the RPS node, sorry. And if it's less power, it goes slower. If it's more power, it goes faster. Now imagine if this motor outputs 1, like full 100% every time. So instead of you putting a throttle on it, because right now you could add a throttle, but imagine though there's no throttle, imagine this whole motor thing, this electric small motor, is actually an on and off style appliance. So you literally just have a toggle button, and this motor, instead of a throttle, it's either 100% on or 100% off. So what they could even do is then take it to the next level, add a new small motor that doesn't have a throttle, but rather is a push or toggle motor rather than a throttle based motor. And then what you'd be able to do is put your VFD on this thing here, and pretty much then what you'd have is, again, you're putting out 100% throttle on this motor, but you're limiting it by putting in this VFD here and lowering the throttle on it. Now this is a very complex topic. I'm sure the electrical engineers and electricians that are watching this video are probably cringing, because I'm not an electrician or electrical engineer by nature or by trade, but I've just worked with a lot of you guys and I kind of know how some of this stuff works. But I think that that would also be able to be a system to limit and kind of give power to the winches, to fans, to motors, to sliding tracks, all that type of stuff, and you'd be able to control how much energy gets to it and therefore the power that it puts out. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing for everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Developers, if you're watching, thank you so much for the support, and I know you guys have made comments about me and my suggestions in the past, so I really do appreciate that acknowledgement. And I don't mean to say any of this to kind of put you down. I love this winch and pulley system update. Like, I'm so happy with this. This is something that I've been looking forward to for such a long time to add to the game. So even if you do nothing, I'm thrilled. But I just wanted to kind of put together these 10 ideas to sort of put it in, maybe in your vision or in your eyes, that there is some things that can be reworked, and to give us that much more of an awesome gaming experience with Stormworks and with these pulleys. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for more content, for more creations. As always, I really appreciate the support and the views, and as I always do say, happy Stormworksing, everyone.